beings who once ruled a vast and ancient empire across the galaxy are known as the Eldari, a name that carries the weight of countless years and a memory of lost grandeur. After the fall, those who survived the cataclysm began to call themselves by new names, each one shaped by the path they had chosen and the place they now occupied. Among them, those who escaped aboard the great craft worlds came to be known as the Asuryani, their identity tied closely to a disciplined path they believed had been set before them by their chief god, Asuryan. In time, they chose to present themselves to others under a simpler name, Eldar, and this name slowly spread beyond their own kind, used widely by the Imperium to describe the entire species. Not all Eldari turned away from their past in the same way, and some remained within the hidden paths of the webway, continuing the indulgent practices that had once brought them to ruin. These became known as the Drukhari, though outsiders often call them Dark Eldar, a name that traces back to a phrase shaped long ago in their own tongue. Elsewhere, far from the remnants of their fallen empire, some had already chosen a quieter existence on distant worlds, seeking distance from the growing corruption they once witnessed. These are remembered as the Exodites, living in isolation on their chosen worlds. There are also those who serve the laughing god, Sigurd, protected in ways others were not during the fall, and they are known as the Harlequins in the common tongue. Their presence moves between the remnants of their people, carrying echoes of stories and survival. In more recent times, a new unity has begun to form among different kindreds, and with it, a return to the older name Eldari, as some believe their kind may yet rise again with the awakening of their god of the dead, Ined. Even so, older terms remain in use, and the people of the craft worlds may still be called Eldar, or more precisely Asuryani, depending on who speaks and what is remembered. The Drukhari move through the hidden paths of the webway like silent hunters, striking from darkness before fading away again without warning. To them, the peoples of the galaxy are not rivals or equals, but helpless prey to be taken and broken at their will. They are a distorted reflection of their craft world kin, shaped by a different path that leads ever deeper into cruelty and excess. Within the impossible expanse of Gomorrah, a vast and shifting city that exists beyond the bounds of real space, they dwell among endless spires and shadowed domains where suffering is constant and deliberate. Their existence is bound to pain, not only the pain they inflict, but the pain they must harvest to endure. They feed upon anguish and misery, drawing strength from the torment of others as they wage an unending war across the galaxy. Once gifted with powerful psychic abilities, they abandoned that path and turned instead toward physical perfection. Their speed is unnatural, their movements precise and fluid, and their confidence borders on arrogance that few can match. Combined with their mastery of cruel and advanced sciences, this makes them one of the most dangerous forces that lurk within an already hostile galaxy. Long before their current form, the Drukhari were part of a vast and powerful civilization that stretched across the galaxy. The Eldari Empire stood at a height few species could even comprehend, with knowledge and mastery that allowed them to shape worlds and dim stars at their will. Life within that empire became and over time, the absence of struggle led to a quiet decay. Freed from all necessity, the Aeldari turned inward, seeking new sensations and experiences to escape the slow weight of endless existence. Their minds were sharper and their emotions deeper than those of any other race, which meant that every pleasure and every sorrow was felt with overwhelming intensity. This sensitivity, once a gift, began to guide them toward ever more extreme pursuits. The search for meaning shifted into a search for sensation, and the pursuit of fulfillment became the pursuit of excess. Pleasure cults formed, drawing more and more followers into rituals that pushed beyond restraint and reason. Violence crept into these practices, first as novelty, then as necessity, until the suffering of others became a source of fascination. Entire segments of their society gave themselves fully to these indulgences, abandoning restraint in favor of endless escalation. Some among the Eldari saw the path ahead and recoiled from it, leaving behind their homeworlds to seek isolation or discipline elsewhere. Yet for those who remained, the descent continued without pause. As their actions intensified, their psychic nature began to echo beyond the material realm. Every sensation, every act of indulgence resonated within the warp, gathering into something unseen but growing. Unnoticed at first, that presence slowly took form, shaped by the collective excess of an entire civilization. Within the warp, the echoes of the Eldara's indulgence gathered strength over long ages, forming a presence that fed upon their emotions and grew with each passing moment. It was not sudden, but inevitable, as countless acts of excess poured into the immaterium and gave shape to something vast and hungry. That presence became aware, coalescing into a single intelligence with a boundless appetite for the souls of its creators. When it finally awakened, it did so with a force that shattered the balance of the galaxy. This was the birth of Slaanesh, the Dark Prince of Pleasure, known among the Eldari as She Who Thirsts. To them, the being was not distant or abstract, but deeply personal, tied to their existence in a way they could never escape. When Slaanesh came into being, the effect upon the material universe was immediate and devastating. A psychic shockwave tore across the galaxy, reaching into every corner where the Eldari still lived. In a single terrible moment, the souls of countless Eldari were ripped from their bodies and consumed, leaving only ruin behind. Entire worlds vanished into the warp, becoming lost and broken remnants of what they once were. The center of their empire collapsed into a vast and unstable rift, which would come to be known as the Eye of Terror. It marked not only the end of their civilization, but the beginning of a long and lingering suffering. Those who had fled far enough survived, as did those hidden deep within the webway. These survivors did not escape unchanged, as the presence of Slaanesh still reached for them, draining their souls slowly rather than all at once. For those within the webway, a grim solution emerged. By inflicting pain upon others, they could sustain themselves, drawing strength from suffering that was not their own. Through this cruel balance they endured, becoming something darker and more twisted than before. They would come to be known as the Drukhari, sustained by torment and bound to an endless hunger that could never truly be satisfied. Camorra began as a great hub within the webway, a place of passage and connection that held immense importance for the ancient Aeldari. Its independence allowed it to grow without restraint, drawing those who sought secrecy and freedom from oversight. Over time, it expanded beyond its original bounds, consuming nearby realms and incorporating them into its ever-growing structure. Wealth and influence flowed into the city, shaping it into a vast and layered domain of power. After the fall, it became something far more sinister. Survivors gathered within its depths, bringing with them the practices and beliefs that had led to their downfall. The city transformed into a place defined by cruelty and excess, where suffering was not hidden but cultivated. Raids into Realspace became constant as the Drukhari captured slaves and returned with them to feed their endless need. Within Camorra, entire regions exist as territories of powerful cabals, each guarding its domain fiercely and responding violently to intrusion. Strange and shifting realms surround the city, appearing close one moment and distant the next, creating a sense of instability that few could navigate safely. Those who dwell there continue the traditions of their ancestors, indulging in acts that sustain their bodies even as their souls slowly decay. Over many ages, Camorra continued to grow, shaped in no small part by the influence of one individual who rose from the lowest position to absolute dominance. Asdrubael Vect began as a slave, yet through calculated ambition and careful planning, he established himself as a force that could not be ignored. He formed the Cabal of the Black Heart, building a network of power that challenged the established noble houses of the city. Rather than confronting them directly, he devised a plan that would use an external force to weaken his rivals. By increasing raids upon Imperial territory, he drew attention to a hidden webway portal that lay within a region already marked by unexplained losses. The Imperium, slow to respond, eventually sent a strike cruiser to investigate. That vessel was captured and dragged into Camorra, creating a situation that would draw even greater attention. Within the city, the prize was coveted, and rival factions moved to claim it for themselves. Vect allowed events to unfold carefully, feeding expendable forces into conflict while positioning himself to benefit from the chaos. His actions set the stage for a much larger confrontation, one that would reshape the balance of power within the Dark City. The arrival of Imperial reinforcements brought sudden violence to Camorra, as strike cruisers emerged through the webway and unleashed their forces into the heart of the city. Drop pods fell from the sky, crashing through structures and scattering defenders as Space Marines established their foothold. The battle spread quickly, drawing in warriors from across the Dark City, each eager to engage in the chaos. Streets burned and towers fell as both sides fought with relentless intensity. Despite the scale of the conflict, the objective of the Space Marines remained focused, and they succeeded in freeing their captured vessel. With their mission complete, they withdrew, leaving devastation behind. In the aftermath, the old noble houses were broken, their power shattered by the invasion and the events that led to it. Into the void left behind stepped Vect, who had orchestrated much of what had occurred. Through careful manipulation and open acknowledgement of his role, he established himself as the supreme overlord of Kamara. From that point onward, his influence tightened steadily, shaping the city according to his will. Far from the heart of Kamara, the Drukhari continue their existence through hidden routes that stretch across distant regions of space. In the Calixis sector and the Koronus Expanse, these pathways are fractured and unstable, shaped by the pressure of the warp. Among these broken passages lies a rare place of stability, known as the Nexus of Shadows. Built upon an ancient structure called the Galen Sphere, it serves as a base for several cabals that operate far from the Dark City. The sphere itself is vast, its surface covered with structures and remnants of long-forgotten technology. Its origins remain unclear, as does the reason it now rests within the webway. Drukhari forces use this location as a hub for raids and trade, returning with captives and resources gathered from nearby regions. Their presence brings constant danger to those who travel these areas, as attacks can come without warning and vanish just as quickly. Within these frontier regions, their influence is less controlled and their actions more unpredictable, making them a persistent threat to all who cross their path. Within the Nexus of Shadows, power is as unstable as the environment itself, shifting between leaders through conflict and betrayal. Salain Morn once ruled there, shaping the outpost into a place of influence and trade. Her control was eventually taken from her by an ally who turned against her, forcing her into exile once more. Such changes meant little to most inhabitants, as leadership in Drukhari society rarely brings relief or stability. Despite her exile, Salain remains a figure of quiet menace, her presence difficult to ignore and her intentions carefully concealed. She continues to pursue influence through indirect means, using those under her command to rebuild what she has lost. Her approach reflects the nature of Drukhari society, where power is never secure and survival depends on constant vigilance and calculation. The rise of Yvraine brought disruption to Kamora, as forces beyond the control of its rulers began to influence the city. A disturbance within the warp opened pathways that allowed demonic entities to enter, threatening the fragile order that had been maintained. Asdrubael Vect could not ignore this challenge, yet he chose not to confront it directly. Instead, he moved through layers of influence, guiding others to act without revealing his own involvement. Conflict spread throughout the city as factions turned against one another, some seeking to oppose the new movement while others embraced it. These struggles were not unusual in Kamra, though their scale and intensity marked them as something different. Efforts to eliminate Yvraine continued through indirect means, including the use of skilled warriors and mercenaries. Even with such measures, she endured, protected by forces that could not easily be overcome. The result was a prolonged state of tension as the influence of her cause continued to spread despite resistance. Among the allies of Vect were those who shaped flesh and form, creating punishments that were as psychological as they were physical. One such method involved reshaping individuals into forms they found deeply repulsive, altering their identity and presence entirely. This transformation became a tool within a larger plan, used to deceive and manipulate events beyond the Dark City. On a distant world, a gathering of Eldari was drawn into a carefully arranged trap. Forces from the Imperium closed in, while Drukhari warriors emerged from hidden pathways, creating a situation from which escape seemed impossible. The attack was coordinated and deliberate, designed to inflict maximum damage. Only the sudden appearance of a powerful entity allowed a portion of the defenders to escape, breaking the encirclement and retreating into the webway. The event stood as another example of the lengths to which the Drukhari would go, using deception and cruelty to pursue their goals without restraint. Fiercely intelligent and deeply devious, the Drukhari exist in a state where pain is not avoided but embraced, and where the suffering of others becomes a vital sustenance that shapes their every action across spans of time that stretch far beyond a mortal lifetime. Their potential, once vast and luminous, has been turned toward darker ends, refined slowly over countless years as they perfect their cruel and shadowed crafts within a realm that knows no true sunlight. They see themselves not as fallen, but as rightful heirs to an ancient legacy, regarding their craft-world kin with open contempt and dismissing others as prey unworthy of respect or thought. In turn, those distant kin view the inhabitants of Kamara as a reminder of a path they abandoned, and though their hatred rarely softens, there are rare moments when greater threats force them into uneasy alignment. Among their own kind, physical form reflects both elegance and lethality, with tall and lithe bodies shaped by constant conflict and refined into instruments of war that move with unsettling grace. Their pale skin carries the stillness of a corpse, untouched by natural light, and though their outward presence may seem magnificent, the truth beneath is far darker when seen through senses attuned to the soul. Within the hidden essence of their being, there is decay and malice, a twisted reflection of what once was, and an enduring hatred that burns cold and constant toward all other life. From early existence, they learn that survival demands merciless action, and that hesitation or compassion invites swift destruction in a society where cruelty is not only accepted, but required. There is little concern for distinctions of strength or gender, as intellect and skill alone determine worth, and their senses sharpen to a level that borders on paranoia, allowing them to detect even the faintest disturbance in their environment. It is said they perceive fear itself as something tangible, something that can be tasted, heard, and followed with unerring precision. Generations of unending violence have made them instinctive warriors, yet their connection to psychic power has withered, abandoned out of necessity to avoid drawing the attention of a presence that hungers for them above all others. Though some have tested these forbidden paths, the consequences are so severe and prolonged that few would ever risk such transgression more than once. In battle, their methods are refined to an extreme, blending advanced technology with cruel ingenuity, creating weapons that do not merely kill, but prolong suffering in ways that satisfy their darkest desires. Their armor itself becomes an extension of this philosophy, layered with blades and edges that serve as both defense and instrument of torment. When they emerge from their shadowed domain, they do so with precision and sudden violence, descending upon their targets through hidden pathways that open without warning and close just as quickly when resistance grows too strong. Their assaults are swift and overwhelming, with forces descending from ornate craft to engage directly in slaughter, leaving behind chaos marked by blood and destruction. For them, the act of breaking a body is only part of the experience, as the true reward lies in the collapse of the mind and spirit, where resistance fades and control becomes absolute. Captives are not granted mercy easily, and many are reshaped into grotesque creations, their existence extended in forms that serve as both decoration and reminder of their captor's power. Others meet a different fate, reduced entirely and consumed in ways that blur the line between sustenance and indulgence, reinforcing the cycle that defines Drukhari existence. Even within their own ranks, cooperation during raids is driven not by trust, but by necessity, as success ensures survival in the ever-shifting politics of their city. These raids are carefully planned, executed by the most capable among them, and focused not only on destruction, but on the capture of those whose suffering will sustain them further. Upon returning, the spoils are divided, traded, or used in countless ways that all serve the same purpose, prolonging their existence while deepening their dependence. Over time, a growing need takes hold, an unrelenting hunger that demands ever more intense suffering from others, and this need shapes their behavior more than any code or belief ever could. To endure this growing hunger, the Drukhari draw upon the emotions of others, consuming the anguish and fear released by sentient beings as a means of sustaining themselves against a force that steadily drains them from within. This act may serve to satisfy that presence which feeds upon them, or it may instead restore something lost within their own essence, though the true nature of this exchange remains uncertain even to them. Should they fall in death, there is no escape, as their souls are claimed entirely, leaving nothing behind but the certainty of what awaits those who fail to sustain themselves. Though they can live for immense spans of time, their continued existence depends upon a constant supply of suffering, and without it, the end comes not through age, but through consumption. By drawing in the essence of others, they are able to reverse the passage of time upon their own bodies, restoring vitality and delaying the inevitable fate that would otherwise claim them. This reliance shapes their actions, driving them to raid, to capture, and to harvest, ensuring that they never lack the source required to continue. Those taken during their incursions become the means by which this cycle continues, their suffering transformed into sustenance, and their existence reduced to a resource that feeds the endless need of their captors. Among the Drukhari, those who are born in a natural way are few, as the long gestation of their kind makes such births uncommon and difficult to sustain. These rare individuals, known as Trueborn, come into the world through their mothers, and this alone sets them apart in the eyes of their people, shaping how they are seen and how they carry themselves through the Dark City. Because of this origin, they are often tied to ancient noble bloodlines, and this connection grants them a place of privilege that few others can claim. There is a quiet certainty in how they regard themselves, a belief that they stand above the rest, especially when they look upon those who were not born as they were. Most Drukhari are created within amniotic gestation tubes, brought into existence through artificial means that sustain the vast population of Gomorrah, a necessity in a society where death is frequent and unrestrained. These individuals are called half-born by the Trueborn, a name that carries disdain, and it shapes the roles they are often forced to accept. Many of these half-born find themselves in servitude, bound to labor or reduced to lives that offer little chance of advancement unless they can seize an opportunity within the rigid and unforgiving hierarchy of their world. The divide between them and the Trueborn remains, ever present, reinforced by both custom and cruelty. Trueborn rarely mix with those they consider lesser, instead forming their own groups within the cabals, where they serve as elite warriors. They moved alongside their Archon as an honored guard, chosen not only for their skill but for their lineage, forming a presence that is both protective and imposing. Their armaments reflect this status, as they carry advanced weapons that mark them apart from other warriors. The Shard Carbine is among these, a weapon that blends elements of the Splinter Rifle and the Splinter Cannon, trading range for a more focused and devastating output suited to their style of combat. Alongside these, they wield dark lances, splinter cannons, blasters, and shredders, each chosen to maximize destruction and ensure that their presence on the battlefield is unmistakable. Their role is not only to defend, but to dominate, to leave a lasting impression of power and precision. Led by a Drakon, these warriors form a tightly bound and exclusive unit, one that does not allow the half-born into its ranks. They carry their weapons not just for protection, but to indulge in the violence that defines their existence, using every tool at their disposal to spread pain and devastation. When they engage the enemy, there is a deliberate display in their actions, a controlled storm of firepower that cuts through opposing ranks and leaves shattered vehicles and broken bodies behind. In this, they find satisfaction not only in victory, but in the spectacle of destruction that follows in their wake. Among the Drukhari, there is a quiet certainty that the Eldari gods perished in the fall, and that their weakness proved they were never worthy of existence. It is often recalled that these gods could not withstand the rise of Slaanesh, and that failure is held with deep contempt rather than sorrow. Yet not all names are spoken with the same bitterness, as Kayla Menshakane still holds a place of respect within Gomorrah, remembered as a figure of war who endured when others did not. Alongside this memory, there remain the Dark Muses, lesser powers who linger in whispered devotion, bound to the very vices that eroded the old pantheon. These figures are said to have once been powerful Drukhari, long since passed into legend, their identities softened into something like sacred folklore. Many among them are tied to a single form of selfish indulgence, and it is believed that through such practices, the strength of the Eldari gods was slowly undone. In certain circles, assassins and murderers turned their thoughts toward Shaimesh, known as the Lord of Poisons, and remembered as the treacherous brother of Siaman, the cosmic serpent. Elsewhere, the courtesan elite of the cult of Lamea offer quiet homage to Lilitu, called the consort of the void, while archons of great influence often align themselves with the tenets of Vilith, whose nature reflects the immense arrogance so common among the Drukhari. Before battle begins, many traditionalist witch cults invoke the presence of the red-crone Hecate, or make careful sacrifices to Kalei, mistress of blades, as part of rites that feel both ancient and deliberate. There is also a lingering belief that Asdrubael Vect, the supreme overlord of the Cabal of the Black Heart, may one day be counted among these dark muses, though his repeated defiance of death suggests that such a transformation may lie far in the future. The Drukhari rely on forms of technology that feel distant and refined, shaped through ages of cruel intent and careful design. Their devices move without weight and strike with unseen force, and though psychic tools still exist among them, they no longer trust their own minds to touch the warp. That danger is always present, and for souls already hunted by Slanesh, even a moment of contact carries quiet doom. Within Camorra, those who still wield psychic gifts are reduced to objects of amusement, their suffering drawn out in ways that reflect the nature of their captors. The tools of the Drukhari are not grown from the warp like the wraithbone of their distant kin, yet they hold an equal level of mastery, shaped instead through craft and intention rather than psychic harmony. In battle, their creations feel almost unreal, as if shaped by imagination alone, and to less advanced beings, they seem closer to sorcery than to any known science. Their weapons do not simply kill, but linger in their effect, igniting nerves with pain, or binding souls within unseen traps, each device reflecting a mind that values sensation above all else. Even their armor serves more than protection, formed with blades that extend their violence into every movement, turning defense into another means of harm. This design is no accident, as the warriors of Camorra study the bodies of other species with care, learning where to cut and how to prolong suffering with precision. Their close combat weapons follow this same quiet philosophy, shaped from materials that feel almost weightless in the hand, yet edged so finely that even hardened armor can be parted with enough force. Some carry fields of energy that ripple across the blade, and though such devices have been recovered by Imperial forces, their workings remain beyond human understanding, locked behind knowledge that has not been shared. The raiding parties of the Drukhari move with a quiet unity that exists only for the promise of gain, and in that brief alignment, their treacherous instincts are held in check by hunger for power, spoils, and slaves. When the Cabals gather in force, their presence spreads across the sky in silent waves of razor-edged craft, and the worlds below have little time to understand what is descending upon them. Each of them lives for themselves alone, guided by a constant need for comfort and the satisfaction of darker desires that leave no space for pride in another's success. Every action is weighed only by what it brings back to the self, And even in moments of shared purpose, there is no illusion of trust between them. It is survival that binds them, nothing more. And even in battle, they give only what is required, never more than the moment demands. Yet there are rare targets that cannot be taken by a single hand, and even the most powerful must accept that some prizes require many blades working in uneasy harmony. Such moments draw them together, not out of loyalty, but from the promise of vast rewards that none would ignore, a world rich with life, a drifting craft vulnerable to harvest, or an unaware species becomes a lure too strong to resist. And so they gather, each already considering the betrayal that may follow. Their society remains fractured, each faction turning upon the other when advantage presents itself, and alliances exist only as long as they are useful. In these uneasy coalitions, power is the only true measure, and the success of a raid can elevate one above rivals in ways that reshape their standing within the Dark City. When these great assaults begin to form, they swell with the participants who seek both profit and advantage, their presence driven by jealousy as much as ambition. Beneath the surface of cooperation, quiet plans take shape, each participant imagining how the spoils might be taken for themselves alone. Greed draws them together, but it is fear that holds them in place. Fear of failure, fear of rivals, and fear of what awaits those who return empty-handed. A vast war fleet offers safety in numbers and strength against greater prey, yet the risk of loss lingers in every decision. Failure brings ruin, and those who falter may find themselves enslaved by the very rivals who once stood beside them. By sharing the danger, they dilute the consequences, spreading the risk across many hands in the hope that none will bear the full weight of defeat. The politics of their city demand total victory, for anything less invites destruction that spreads through entire factions, leaving ruin in its wake. This knowledge tempers their betrayals, holding them in uneasy restraint while the raid unfolds, though that restraint rarely survives the return to Camorra. On the battlefield, the Drukhari move with a precision that seems at odds with their nature, their actions shaped by careful planning laid down long before the first strike begins. Archons and succubi guide these raids with deliberate intent, opening hidden paths through the webway so that their forces may arrive without warning. Only the most capable are chosen for these assaults, and this careful selection creates warriors who fight with relentless focus, setting aside their rivalries for the duration of the hunt. In that brief unity, they act together to inflict the greatest suffering and to gather as many captives as possible before withdrawing into the shadows. Old grudges are not forgotten, only delayed, and they resurface once the captives have been divided and the immediate purpose has passed. The city demands a constant flow of souls, and each raid feeds that endless hunger with lives taken from distant worlds. Within these forces, there is no single form, as cabals draw upon many elements to shape their strength. The Wycoats bring swift and deadly fighters, their movements honed in arenas where violence is spectacle and survival is earned through skill. Alongside them move the creations of the homunculi, twisted forms that carry the marks of endless experimentation, their presence adding a slow and relentless weight to the assault. These beings serve both as warriors and as tools, shaped to endure and to inflict pain in equal measure. Other figures join as well, drawn by opportunity or by allegiance to no one, filling the ranks with speed and chaos as they strike from unexpected angles. Jet bikes cut through the air in sudden passes, while distant fire falls from above, shaping the battlefield in moments that leave little room for response. Those who lead these raids gather such varied forces with intention, forming a balance that can adapt to any resistance they may encounter. This careful composition allows them to overcome defenses quickly, leaving their enemies disoriented and unable to recover before the next blow falls. At times, a single faction takes the lead, driven by a specific purpose that shapes the entire assault. The witches seek living prizes for their arenas or rare materials for their strange concoctions, and their approach favors close engagement where their skill can be fully expressed. The homunculi, in their own way, also venture into real space, drawn by a need for subjects and by the quiet satisfaction of pursuing their own interests directly. Their forces advance like a tide of altered flesh and metal, each movement accompanied by the tools of torment that define their craft. The Drukhari do not commit themselves to a single decisive clash. Instead, they move in swift strikes that weaken the enemy piece by piece before fading away. Their speed and control allow them to choose the moment of engagement, striking where resistance is weakest and withdrawing before a counterattack can take hold. They avoid gathering in one place, and this constant movement denies their enemies the chance to respond with force. Over time, their attacks form a pattern, one that unfolds in measured stages that erode defenses until little remains. In larger engagements, this approach takes the form of successive waves, each one shaped with a clear purpose that builds upon what came before. The first strikes disrupt and isolate, removing threats that might slow the advance of those who follow. From hidden paths they emerge without warning, descending upon their targets with sudden force that leaves defenders struggling to react. As the initial chaos spreads, further attacks arrive, each one aimed at a different weakness, each one tightening the hold upon the battlefield. Some descend from above, focusing their fire upon exposed positions, while others appear from the shadows, striking at those who seek shelter. The enemy is forced to divide attention, unable to respond effectively as pressure builds from multiple directions. A larger wave follows, carrying greater numbers and turning its focus toward command and control, removing the structure that holds the defense together. By this point, confusion has taken root, and resistance begins to falter under the weight of constant assault. Finally, the slower elements arrive, moving in from the ground to close the trap, pressing the enemy between advancing forces and those already engaged. This final movement completes the pattern, leaving no path of escape and no strength left to resist. When the fighting ends, what remains is gathered and taken, and the purpose of the raid is fulfilled in silence that follows the storm. An Archon stands at the center of a cabal, the cold heart of every raiding force and political power within the Dark City, from the highest spires of Camera. Such rulers hold dominion over schemes that stretch far beyond simple war, shaping events that ripple through real space and the hidden paths of the webway. Power among them is never stable, and every Archon survives by reading the intentions of others before they are spoken. Each decision carries the weight of hidden knives, and even the closest allies may already be planning betrayal. In such a place, foresight becomes instinct, and survival depends on turning every trap back upon its maker. Time deepens their cruelty, and the long years leave them restless unless surrounded by suffering on a vast scale. Whole worlds may be raided not for conquest, but for sensation, as only the anguish of countless victims can sustain those who have endured for so long. Their faces often disappear behind crafted masks, some elegant, others shaped from the flesh of defeated rivals. Before battle, an Archon lingers among their collected weapons, choosing instruments designed not only to kill, but to terrify. Each relic holds a purpose, and each selection reflects the kind of fear they wish to bring upon their prey. Around them gather retainers, creatures, and courtiers drawn from many forms of life, each bound by usefulness rather than loyalty. Among these are the Medusae, whose hosts carry beings from the Imperium that feed upon emotion. Their presence allows memories of terror to be preserved and consumed again, as if the moment had never passed. Others keep Urgles, blind hunters driven by scent and instinct, relentless once they have marked their quarry. There are also the Lama-Ins, figures of beauty and quiet danger, whose knowledge of poisons ensures that even a passing gesture can bring death. For protection, many Archons rely on the Slith, towering mercenaries whose strength and discipline offer a rare form of reliability in a realm ruled by treachery. Within this shifting court, every presence serves a purpose, and every moment is watched with suspicion. Nothing is given freely, and nothing is ever truly safe. The succubi rule the witch cults with a grace that hides relentless violence, their movements as precise as any crafted weapon. They are known as the Brides of Death, figures who live within the arenas where skill and spectacle blend into a single expression of dominance. Each cult is guided by a triad, yet only one truly holds power, while the others seek to surpass her through feats of lethal artistry. Rivalry is constant, and disputes are settled not with words, but with sudden and final strikes that leave no doubt of superiority. Beauty carries weight in these arenas, and even the smallest flaw can become a death sentence before a watching crowd. Those who stand at the top maintain their form through acts of cruelty, feeding upon fear and suffering to renew themselves and remain flawless in the eyes of their audience. The greatest among them seek something beyond victory, shaping each kill into an expression of identity. Some become known for their methods, others for the elegance of their execution, and their names carry meaning throughout the Dark City. In battle beyond the arenas, they pursue worthy opponents, seeking recognition through the defeat of powerful foes. Each victory reinforces their place, and each witness ensures that their reputation endures. Elsewhere, in darker chambers, the homunculi practice their craft without concern for spectacle. These ancient beings reshape flesh and spirit alike, creating forms that reflect their own twisted desires. Their covens sustain the cycle of existence for their kind, and even the most powerful fear their attention. Their bodies are altered beyond recognition, shaped into forms that blur the line between organic and constructed. Some carry their organs outside their frames. Others replace their blood with substances that burn or corrode, and all present themselves as living works of deliberate distortion. They move slowly without urgency, confident in their place within an endless cycle of suffering and renewal. To them, battle is simply another opportunity to create, and every death becomes part of a larger design that continues long after the moment has passed. The incubi dedicate themselves entirely to the act of killing, refining each movement until nothing remains but precision. Their presence is silent and deliberate, their armor shaped to inspire dread, and their discipline sets them apart even among their own kind. They train within dark shrines where only the strongest endure, and where failure is answered with death and ritual offering. Advancement requires more than skill, as each warrior must prove their worth through acts that bind them to their path without return. Their chosen weapon, the Clive, reflects their philosophy, a blade meant to end a life with certainty and without hesitation. They do not seek spectacle, only the most efficient path to their goal, and even their armor carries devices that weaken their enemies before the final strike. Beyond them stand the racks, creations of the homunculi who have surrendered their former selves. Their bodies are reshaped into instruments of pain, their identities erased beneath masks and alterations that serve only their masters. They move with unsettling strength, their limbs altered and multiplied, their forms adapted for both labor and combat. Each one exists only to obey, and their loyalty is enforced not by choice but by design. Among them, those who endure longest gain a measure of distinction, though even this remains bound to service. Their existence is a constant cycle of suffering and purpose, and they accept it without question. The Wyches move through battle with a fluid grace that conceals lethal intent, their weapons shifting and adapting with each motion. Among them, the most skilled rise to lead, forming tight circles of elite warriors whose loyalty is driven by ambition and rivalry alike. These chosen fighters stain themselves with the blood of their enemies, marking each victory as a personal triumph. Their movements remain precise even in chaos, and their presence turns conflict into a performance shaped by speed and control. True-born warriors carry a different kind of pride, born into privilege and set apart from those created through artificial means. They surround their leaders armed with advanced weapons and eager to demonstrate their superiority through overwhelming force. Elsewhere, the Harlequins move between worlds and factions, their purpose hidden beneath layers of performance and ritual. They appeared without warning, staging elaborate displays that carry meaning known only to them. In battle, their movements blur the line between art and violence, their equipment enhancing speed and deception. Their presence can shift the course of a conflict, and their departure leaves only questions behind. Shadow Seers shape perception itself, guiding the thoughts of their enemies through illusion and suggestion. Their tools spread confusion, and their powers cloak their allies from sight, leaving foes disoriented and vulnerable. In deeper shadows, mandrakes emerge from places where light fails to reach, their forms shifting and their presence draining warmth from the air. They move between dimensions, striking without warning and feeding upon fear as much as flesh. Their attacks carry a cold energy that halts movement and saps strength, and their existence remains uncertain even to those who study them. Some see them as remnants of ancient excess, others as something far removed from their origins. Grotesques stand as the result of punishment and transformation, their bodies enlarged and distorted beyond recognition. Their minds are stripped down to obedience, and their strength makes them relentless in combat. They advance without hesitation, driven by commands that reduce battle to simple action. Even when left without direction, they continue until nothing remains within reach, their existence defined entirely by the violence imposed upon them. The Wyches thrive within the spectacle of combat, their movements shaped by training and enhanced by substances that heighten their already remarkable abilities. Their weapons extend and coil, designed to confuse and entrap before delivering precise and painful strikes. Their attire balances protection with exposure, presenting an image crafted as carefully as their technique. Every movement is deliberate, and every expression reflects the satisfaction drawn from each moment of inflicted pain. Kabbalite warriors form the backbone of many raids, their armor fitted through rituals that sharpen both mind and body. Pain becomes a constant companion, enhancing awareness and focusing intent, until nothing remains but the will to kill. Their weapons are designed to prolong suffering, each projectile carrying toxins that ensure a slow and agonizing end. They favor distance when possible, preserving themselves while observing the effects of their attacks with clinical interest. Leadership among them rests with those who have proven themselves repeatedly, their authority accepted not through loyalty, but through demonstrated effectiveness. Survival depends on following strength, and strength is measured only in results. The raid begins with a sudden opening in the sky, a portal that unfolds with unnatural light and releases a wave of sleek skimmers. These craft descend rapidly, their design favoring speed over protection, and their presence signals the start of swift and merciless violence. Raiders glide close to the ground, their passengers exposed yet unafraid, ready to leap into conflict at a moment's notice. Their structure reflects a philosophy that values momentum, and every element is shaped to enhance movement and impact. After the attack, survivors are taken as trophies bound to the craft that carried their captors. The dead are treated with equal indifference, returned without ceremony or care. The venom moves even faster, smaller, and more agile, carrying only a select group into battle. Its defenses distort perception, making it difficult to target, and its speed allows it to slip through defenses that would halt larger vessels. Even a single such craft can alter the course of a conflict, as its passengers deliver precise and devastating strikes before vanishing once more. Hellions descend from above with reckless energy, their skyboards carrying them through the air with sudden shifts and sharp turns. Their lives are defined by independence and conflict, and their presence brings chaos wherever they choose to strike. They gather in gangs, forming shifting alliances that dissolve as quickly as they appear. Each member seeks recognition through bold actions, and their attacks often begin with taunts before turning into swift dismemberment. Reavers pursue speed with obsessive focus, merging movement and violence into a single pursuit. Their races become contests of survival, where failure carries immediate consequences and success is measured in precision. Their jet bikes respond to the slightest input, allowing them to strike with incredible accuracy. In battle, they use this control to devastating effect, turning their craft into weapons that cut through their enemies with each pass. Scourges rise above the city, their bodies altered to allow true flight, and their existence shaped by a journey that tests endurance and will. Those who survive this transformation become part of a distinct group, separated from those who remain bound to the ground. They carry messages and secrets, moving through the air with purpose, and their role makes them indispensable within the complex networks of power. In battle, they prefer distance, using weapons designed for use in motion. Razor-wing fighters streak across the sky with unmatched speed, their attacks sudden and overwhelming. Their presence disrupts defenses and clears paths for those who follow, leaving destruction that spreads confusion among their enemies. Beastmasters guide creatures drawn from many worlds, controlling them through methods that blend instinct and manipulation. Their presence adds another layer of unpredictability to each raid, as their charges move with feral intent through the chaos. The Talos advances as a fusion of flesh and mechanism, its movements deliberate and its purpose centered on both destruction and torment. Those it captures are consumed from within, their remains repurposed into substances valued by their creators. The Koronus feeds differently, drawing out the essence of life itself and redistributing it to those nearby. Its presence strengthens allies and weakens foes, altering the balance of battle through its quiet influence. Ravagers strike with precision, appearing only long enough to deliver devastating attacks before vanishing again. Their lack of heavy armor is offset by speed and positioning, allowing them to dismantle stronger targets without prolonged exposure. Above all, the Void Raven moves unseen by most instruments, its approach silent and sudden. Its weapons fall upon targets without warning, leaving destruction that seems to emerge from nothing, and then it is gone, leaving only the aftermath behind. In the end, nothing within the Dark City ever truly finds stillness, and no span of time brings with it any lasting peace, for the Drukhari endure not through unity, nor through any shared purpose beyond survival, but through a fragile and deliberate balance of cruelty that must be maintained without pause, where every raid into real space, every calculated betrayal within their own ranks, and every act of inflicted suffering serves only to delay the slow and inevitable drain upon their souls. Within the vast and shifting expanse of Komara, the towering spires continue to rise above shadowed domains that never remain the same for long. Power shifts endlessly between cabals, while alliances fracture as quickly as they are formed. New schemes take shape in silence, each one driven by ambition, fear, or the simple necessity of survival. It is a place where weakness is not tolerated and hesitation invites destruction. Yet beneath the constant motion and the illusion of control, there remains a truth that no Drukhari can escape, no matter how powerful they become or how carefully they manipulate the world around them, for they are bound to the legacy of their fall, bound to the presence that was born from their own excess, and bound to the unending hunger that defines every moment of their existence. No victory offers them freedom, and no conquest brings satisfaction, while no amount of suffering taken from others can ever truly restore what was lost. What sustains them also ensures that they can never return to what they once were, leaving them trapped within a cycle that continues without resolution. Across the galaxy, the hidden paths of the webway remain open, stretching into distant regions where their presence is felt but rarely seen. From these unseen routes, the Drukhari emerge again and again, striking without warning and vanishing without trace. They leave behind only silence, loss, and the lingering memory of terror. To those who endure their raids, they are nothing more than predators from the darkness, appearing without reason and disappearing without consequence, but to themselves, they are survivors of a fate that consumed their kin, sustained by the very suffering that defines them, and shaped by a history that offers no escape. And so the cycle continues, unbroken and unending, as it has since the moment of their transformation. It is carried forward through cruelty and sustained by pain. It remains bound to persist for as long as even a single Drukhari remains within the shadows of the webway.